According to people on the internet, cyclists are an absolute menace of the roads, constantly running red lights, darting across lanes and generally causing havoc. And if you speak to cyclists, drivers aren't exactly angels of the road either.
Come on, mate.
In this video, I'm going to cover 7 things that I, a lycra-clad menace, wish drivers would just stop doing. Now, I'm aware that I'm at risk of this video becoming a whinge and blame game, and that's not what I'm trying to do with this. I want this video to actually be constructive and useful, so I'm going to try to explain why, as a cyclist, some of these actions are not ideal. Some of these points are going to be really obvious things, but sometimes as a driver, you might not even realise that they're an issue, so hopefully they're actually useful to be taught through. Number 1, sounding your horn to let us know that you're there. Now, I'm sure most drivers that do this are doing this with good intentions. They want to let a cyclist know that they're behind them and they might be overtaking them soon. It's a gentle little hello, I'm here. But let me just say that as a cyclist, it doesn't feel like a gentle hello. When you're on the road as a more vulnerable road user like a cyclist, someone beeping their horn at you from a big metal box with an engine actually feels quite aggressive and scary, even if it's not intended that way. If you're driving behind a cyclist and you want to let them know they're there, just let me reassure you that we probably already do. We can hear you approaching, and even if we can't hear you approaching, just wait a couple of seconds until you overtake us, making sure you give us plenty of space. Sounding your horn to let us know you're there from your perspective might feel helpful and friendly, but from our perspective, it doesn't feel great. 2, edging out at junctions. Now, this is one I suspect drivers don't even realise they're doing often. They're waiting at a junction for their time to pull out, and every time that they nearly pull out as an opportunity arises, they just edge closer and closer to the junction, sometimes sticking their nose out into it. For most road vehicles, that's not a major issue because they're often driving away from the edge of the lane. But for a cyclist, it's much more likely that we're going to be cycling towards the edge of the curb, either to allow cars to overtake us, or because that's where the bike lane is positioned. If a driver's edged their nose out into the junction, a cyclist often has to swerve around them, moving into the centre of the lane to do so. That's obviously dangerous if another road user is about to try to overtake us, or just if the road is slippery and wet, it's not great to be steering really sharply like that. Like I said, you probably don't even realise you're doing it, but next time you're at a junction, just make sure your nose isn't sticking out. It really is a bit of an issue for cyclists.
Don't pull out, mate, don't pull out.
3, not using your indicators, especially at roundabouts. Now, I don't really think there's an excuse for this one, unfortunately, but I do think that it probably impacts cyclists more than it does other road users, and I'll try to explain why. As a cyclist, you're obviously powering yourself, and every time you slow down, you need to exert physical effort to get yourself back up to the speed you were just at. That's obviously extremely obvious, and it's kind of our decision. We've chosen to ride our bikes, but over a long ride, having to constantly stop and start when you don't really need to kind of adds up. For example, if I'm approaching a mini roundabout and there's a car already on it, and they're intending to take the first exit, the one before me, but they don't indicate to show they're leaving, I have to get to the junction and fully stop unnecessarily. And there's obviously other circumstances where drivers just turn into junctions without indicating, which is super dangerous, particularly if I'm cycling behind you or on your inside. Indicators are such a useful tool to visually demonstrate where you're intending to go, so just bloody use them. This is just a quick interlude to say that if you're enjoying this video and you like this kind of content, please do hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And also, if you're a driver, I'd really like to hear your opinions. What is it that cyclists do that you find annoying? And I really want you to explain why it is as well, so that we can understand. Let's turn this into like a learning exchange and both try to help each other. 4, overtaking too closely. Now, this is another one that you may not even realise you're doing, but the advice when overtaking a cyclist is to give them at least 1.5 metres when driving at slow speed, and the width of a car if you're driving at 30 miles per hour or above. That sounds like a hell of a lot of space, but as a cyclist, it doesn't feel like it. When the route that you're riding on takes you onto a fast and busy road, you can feel really vulnerable, and the cars feel really fast. I'd estimate that on almost every bike ride I go on, someone overtakes me more closely than I'd like them to. And to be honest, it's scary and it's dangerous. And it's particularly dangerous if there's an obstacle where I'm riding, whether that be glass, a pothole, or somebody opening the door of a parked car into the lane. Obviously, in that situation, the cyclist needs to move out towards the middle of the lane. If a car's overtaking you at that time and they're overtaking you too closely, there's going to be a collision. This is one of the reasons you sometimes see cyclists cycling towards the middle of the lane. They're giving themselves a lot of wiggle room in case there's any obstacles towards the curb, and also they're trying to discourage drivers from overtaking them in situations which they consider unsafe. If you're driving and a cyclist is taking the lane in front of you, I'd urge you to just try to be patient and put yourself in the shoes of the cyclist. If you're in doubt, just wait a little bit longer until you're entirely sure that the road is wide enough for you to safely overtake. And if you're not convinced how dangerous it feels, maybe go on a bike ride one day and just feel what it feels like as a car, bus or lorry overtakes you too closely. 5. Parking your car in the bike lane. Some drivers complain when a cyclist is choosing to ride in the road rather than the designated bike lane. But the simple fact is, bike lanes are often blocked, and sometimes they're blocked by cars parked in them. And if bike lanes are regularly blocked or not functional, then cyclists are going to choose to ride in the road instead. I know it's a really small minority of drivers that do park in the bike lanes, and probably nobody watching this video does. But on the off chance that somebody watching this does park in the bike lanes, please just don't do it. 6. Waiting in the bike box at traffic lights. Now I know sometimes this is entirely unavoidable, and I'm not talking about those times. The times where you're approaching a green light and it turns red and you don't have enough time to stop. That's fine. But out on rides, I've seen it occur so many times where a car just slowly creeps into the bike box. Now the reason these boxes are here at red lights is so that cyclists can suitably position themselves at a junction, particularly if they're turning right. It means we can pull away in a more safe way, and it means we don't have to cut across traffic. To a driver that might seem like a really small thing, but to a cyclist it's really quite significant. And cyclists really appreciate it when drivers do wait behind the bike box and give us the space that we need. And if you need just a little bit more convincing, you can actually get a £100 fine and 3 points on your licence. 7. Everything else. Everything I've covered in this video isn't even the most dangerous stuff that only the worst drivers do. Speed, U-turn illegally, drink drive, drive without a license, and ultimately kill hundreds of people each year with their actions. But with this video, I wanted to focus on the things that drivers may not even realise they're doing, things that might seem small and things that I think can easily be changed. If you're a driver and you've watched this video, firstly, thank you, and secondly, I hope this has provided you with a useful, different perspective on things. And I genuinely hope it didn't come across too much as a one-sided whinge and attack from a grumpy old cyclist. If you've got any questions or you want me to clarify any of the things I've said today, then please do ask them. I'm more than happy to reply to all comments. And if you'd like to find out all the other reasons why cyclists might choose to ride in the road rather than the bike lane, then check out this video here. Thanks for watching, hopefully see you soon. Cheers.